So thank you for sharing, and obviously, your happy, thoughtful bucks of, the things that we can do to fight cancer. I think it's a great segue to ask Julie Tovey to unmute, and Julie's going to introduce our speaker today.
Thank you. We're very happy to have Jenn Beyond here. She is the Executive Director of the North and South Carolina markets of the Susan G. Komen Foundation. Prior to joining Komen, she spent 14 years serving in leadership and development roles at March of Dimes, the Alzheimer's Association, and the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. She lives in Rolesville, North Carolina. Raise your hand if you know where that is. With her husband, children, and a dog. Jenn, thanks so much for being with us today to promote breast cancer awareness.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here. I appreciate the warm welcome. Rolesville is, for anybody who wants to know, about 20 minutes outside of downtown Raleigh. So it is a tiny town that nobody's heard of, but it is actually only 25 minutes from downtown Raleigh. I am going to share my screen in a moment. When I share my screen, I won't be able to use the chat. So if Julia or Julie just mind watching the chat, this is relatively informal. So I'm happy to pause for questions while I'm doing it. We'll also have, I believe, a few minutes at the end for questions. So I want everybody to, if someone has a burning question, I don't want them to forget it. So if you need to interrupt, that's totally fine.
So Jenn, I'm going to interrupt real quick and say, I asked people to put their questions in the chat, and then at the end, I go through the chat for you. So I will take care of that.
You're 3 steps ahead of me.
Burning question, type it in the chat as you think of it, and we'll get it at the end.
Awesome. Okay. You guys are professionals in this space. I don't know why I even had to say that. Perfect. Okay. I am going to share my screen. Share. And then from beginning, I pulled the logo straight from the website. So I hope that I pulled the right one. But again, just want to say thank you all so much for having me here today. It is a pleasure to be here to talk about breast cancer. And I also just want to say a quick thank you to all of you who serve in such important roles with Rotary. I had the distinct, fortunate experience to work with Rotary very closely when I was at the Alzheimer's Association with the research fund that you all organize. So you do incredible work for the community. So thank you. It is so important. With that, I'll say it is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and we are very, very busy at Komen, and I'm happy to talk about the great work that we do at the organization, as well as just some information about breast cancer. So what is Susan G. Komen? This is one of the most common questions I get. Where was it founded? Who is Susan G. Komen? So back in 1980, our founder, Nancy, her sister was dying of breast cancer. And back in the 80s, breast cancer was a death sentence. There was not many treatments available. We didn't talk about it so openly and so freely. And there were just not a lot of ways to work through breast cancer. So Nancy told her sister that I will do something to end that. And she started the very first race for the cure back in the 80s. And then the Susan G. Komen Foundation was formed. So we've been in existence for over 40 years now, which is relatively young when you think about other nonprofits. The American Heart Association, American Cancer Society, both of those organizations have been around for well over 120 years. So we are relatively new to the crew, as I like to say sometimes, but we've done tremendous work in research and advocacy, and I will get into all of that. So what is our mission and our vision? Now, when I do presentations, I try to be as informal as possible. I know you all can read some of the slides, so I'm just going to highlight the things that are really important and some of the quick facts. So our vision is a world without breast cancer, and our mission is really to meet people where they are and meet the most pressing needs of our communities through research, as well as ways to prevent and cure breast cancer. So our strategic imperatives are obviously discover the breakthroughs for the most aggressive and deadly breast cancers, but also, and I cannot say this enough, scream it from the rooftops, ensure all people can receive the care that they need. All people, regardless of race, ethnicity, background, location. So important to Komen and the work that we do. So here are just some breast cancer statistics, and we've come such a long way. And I'm so grateful to that. I'll also just share that I found out I had breast cancer 2 years ago in in January of 2022. In March of 2022, I was given the choice to have a lumpectomy and radiation or to go through a double mastectomy. And I was 33 at the time with a barely 1-year-old daughter. So I chose to have a mastectomy. And I'm grateful because it was diagnosed completely by accident. And while I say that breast cancer has come such a long way, we still have so much work to do. More than 44,000 people are expected to die from breast cancer in 2024, mostly from what we call MBC, which is metastatic breast cancer that is spread throughout your body, stage 4 breast cancer. 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer at some point in their lifetime. And then something that I also want to share, especially when I'm talking to men, is that 2,700, 2,800 new cases of male breast cancer will be diagnosed in the United States. We have a big event in Raleigh every year, and there is a male breast cancer survivor who walks every single year, and it is just the most inspiring thing. So while it is not as common, it is still prevalent and it is still important to note. Black women in the US are about 40% more likely to die from breast cancer than white women. And about 168,000 are estimated to be living with MBC in the US, metastatic breast cancer. And these are just some of our self-awareness messages. So what can you keep an eye on? What can you do? Know your risk, get screened, know what is normal, and lead a healthy lifestyle. So please just know your family history, know what is going on in your family, in your day-to-day. Make sure you're getting those mammograms 40 plus every single year. If you're a higher risk, you should be getting those mammograms even earlier. Know what is normal for you. Look at your body, know your body. And if something doesn't look right, please open your mouth and say something. Talk to your doctor, communicate with your doctor, and get that imaging, whether it's another mammogram, whether it's an ultrasound, a breast MRI, whatever that looks like for you. Make sure that you're doing that. You do not want to let anything sit, and we don't want to have a diagnosis that could be stage 1 become stage 3 or stage 4 because you didn't go to the doctor or you just weren't steadfast in getting that care. And then last but not least, lead a healthy lifestyle. This applies to most health in general, heart health, brain health. Try to be active, get outside, walk, eat as healthy as possible, and just take really good care of yourself, get good sleep. So knowing your risk, we have a ton of extensive information about this on our website, but the greatest risk is 1, being born female, and number 2, getting older, which for the ladies, we're female and we're all getting older. So with that comes greater risk. My grandmother was diagnosed with breast cancer at 74. So it can happen at any time, at any age. And be sure, like I said earlier, just talk about your health history, talk about your personal risk. Your screening, make sure you have a clinical breast exam at least every 3 years at age 25 and every year with the mammogram starting at age 40. Communicate with your doctor, talk to your doctor, express your concerns, advocate for yourself, be really, really clear. I've heard so many stories about, women who've had babies who are confused about, they were breastfeeding and there's some things are, uncomfortable in their breasts and they attribute it to, mastitis or other things. And it's just very, very important to make sure that you're communicating with your doctor and you're advocating with yourself. And then please, please don't miss your mammogram. COVID was really, really hard. Many people, hunkered down and they weren't able to get their mammograms. Many folks are serving as caregivers for others and tend to let their own health slide down the wayside a little bit. Please be proactive and have that mammogram every single year. And then know what is normal for you. Like I said, make sure if there are any changes or anything looks funny or you have any sort of feelings, communicate that with your doctor. That's what they are there for. And then, like I said, the healthy lifestyle choices, healthy weight, exercise, limit alcohol, limit menopausal hormone use, and then breastfeed if you can. If you're a mother and you decide and you can breastfeed, do that. But that is no way saying you must. It is just saying if you can. So what does Komen do and what is our impact? So we have 4 pillars at Susan G. Komen, which ignite the work that we do. We are committed to research. We are committed to care. We bring our community together, and then we take action, which is our advocacy. We are the only breast cancer focused organization that takes this 360 comprehensive approach. So research. Since 1980, Komen has invested over $1 billion with a B dollars in research, which is absolutely incredible. So we are the second leading funder of research behind the US government. We've invested in over 2,700 research studies. We've contributed to over 500 clinical trials. And then currently 70% of our Komen funded research projects are focused on MBC, metastatic breast cancer, which is very important because MBC is incurable. You may live 5, 10, 15, 20 years with MBC, but there is no cure for MBC, which is why we are focused on research for metastatic breast cancer. We have a really exciting new registry that we call Share for Cures, and it's a breast cancer registry that connects researchers and those who've had a breast cancer diagnosis together. And you submit your history, you do a little cheek swab, and it is really, really simple and easy to join, but it gives you the opportunity to be a part of research and to be a part of the next breakthrough for breast cancer. So I'm actually a part of it. I urge you to share that information if people want to make a difference this way or get more information about research. We have a lot of researchers and scientists behind this at Komen, and it's fantastic. So the website's here. And Julie, I can send you this PowerPoint after as well for you to share with the group. Providing care. It is incredible to me that we are in 2024 and it is so difficult to get a diagnosis. It can be so difficult to pay for breast cancer treatment. And one of the most wonderful things Komen has is our helpline. So we have professionals staffed on our helpline to answer any questions, be emotional support, give recommendations about doctors, provide care. It is in English and in Spanish. And the other fantastic thing about the helpline is we also have a patient financial program for folks that qualify, because we do not want anybody facing breast cancer to have to make a decision between putting gas in their car and traveling to their appointments or to, get their chemotherapy or get their radiation. So the Komen helpline is right on this website. It's also right on this page right here, 1-877-GO-KOMEN is also on our website. Uniting community. So we have events every year. We have our walk in Charlotte coming up at the end of this month, and then we have our Race for the Cure in Raleigh. And this is a way for everybody to come join together, and we acknowledge the survivors. We have a really powerful ceremony. It is free to register for the walk. There is a fee for the timing for the Race for the Cure, but anybody can come. It's family friendly, lots of entertainment, lots of food, and it is just a great way to kind of say, hey, we're making a difference in the fight against breast cancer. We have all of our research pillars and lots of great information, and it's just a really wonderful day. So we're expecting about 4,000 to 5,000 people in Charlotte at the end of the month. And then as you can see here, we have about 500,000 folks across the country that participate in these events. And taking action advocacy. This is so important. This picture at the bottom is actually from our 2023 Advocacy Day in Washington. Those are Komen volunteers and staff from all across the country to storm the Capitol for breast cancer. So we are not a lobbying organization. We do not have a 501c4, but we do go and we do speak with our legislators to let our voices be heard and hope to influence some of our bills. So we have a Center of Public Policy at Komen with dedicated staff members for advocacy efforts in each of our states as well as across the country. So part of what we do is make sure that we get the breast cancer funding, that's renewed by Congress every single year, as well as leading efforts for policy change, such as supplemental imaging and paying for supplemental imaging for people, things like that. So we have grassroots advocates. We have over 300 advocacy ambassadors across our country, and they do incredible work that includes, writing a letter to an editor, signing a petition, sending an email. All of those things make a huge difference. And then where the money goes, very, very important. So 80% of every dollar that comes in, 80 cents goes straight to our mission, and then 20% goes towards fundraising and admin. We consistently keep with that, and that is one of the highest charity ratings that we can do. because we need people to put forth the programs and staff the helpline and do all of the things. So this is just some of our work in the patient care center. So our fiscal year is a little wonky. It's April 1 to March 31st. So from April 2023 to March 2024, here are the numbers of the people that we helped and we influenced in North and South Carolina up on the screen. And then as far as research grows, we have amazing, incredible universities and institutions right here in the Triangle and across the Carolinas, which is amazing. So Duke and UNC are huge beneficiaries of our research dollars. They have incredible doctors there. We awarded 2 research grants in this grant cycle for Duke and then 4 at UNC, and the work is astounding. And then our Center for Public Policy, which was introduced in North Carolina, it did not pass, sadly, but it was our Komen-led bill for diagnostic supplemental imaging. And that supplemental imaging is the breast MRIs, the ultrasounds. When your mammogram looks a little wonky or cloudy and they're just not sure, then they would order that supplemental imaging. And then just a plug, if anybody is interested or knows anybody who is interested, the Charlotte Walk is coming up on Saturday, the 26th. You can register for free. It's right here. And then we have other volunteer opportunities. We have our board, we have executive event committees, and we have our operations committee as well, which is focused on logistics. So I can, my email is on the next slide if anyone has any questions or any interest or knows anybody. And that also extends to all of our mission, our patient care center. Please, please pass this information along. It's so important. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. That was awesome. And I will say, if you email your presentation to Julie, she will pull out the links and help post them on our Facebook page as well. And then we do share the little video of our club meeting on a YouTube channel that people can watch and get the information on that as well. So that was fantastic. And that was a lot of information. I know you did an awesome job of summarizing all of it. So we'll go through, there's a couple questions in the chat, and then I'm sure that other people, as you think of questions, then we have a little bit of time for that. So, and Jeanette had put a note, but I also appreciate the mention of breast cancer in men, because I think that we forget about that until somebody that has had a man in their life that is affected. But I think that often they think that it's, something they don't ever have to think about, and a lump that they feel is, an injury or scar tissue or something, and they don't investigate till it's too late. So I think that it's really important that we share that too. So one of the questions was a little bit about the difference in the mortalities between Black and white women, but then right after that stat, you had something about Hispanics. And I don't think, for a while we've heard that Black women are a little more at risk, but I don't know if the risk in Hispanics is higher genetically, or if it's higher because they aren't getting the diagnostics. And so if you could share a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So those rates are mostly due to just not being given or getting quality care. And also, for whatever reason, their diagnoses aren't made until later. So where more white women get diagnosed at stage 0 or stage 1 or stage 2, studies have shown, and the statistics show, that Black women or Hispanic women get diagnosed later. And then also, when it comes to quality care and getting access, unfortunately, Black and Hispanic women have to advocate for themselves more. And that is why the deaths are more prevalent as well. So they're not getting diagnosed until later, and they're not being heard in the same way that white women are.
And so a curiosity about some of the things that you help provide when people may not have the insurance and the funding is, if someone goes into a doctor and they get a diagnosis, how prevalent in our area of the Carolinas is it that the doctors that are making the diagnosis are familiar with the fact that there may be help available for these people, where they would recommend it? versus people having to discover on their own that there's resources?
That is a great question.
Yeah.
So it's funny because I had my follow-up appointment. I was treated at UNC Health right here in the Raleigh area. And my surgeon, who's an incredible surgeon, he didn't realize that Komen had a helpline and didn't realize that Komen had patient financial aid. And when I first received my diagnosis, I didn't have that either. So, and it's a shame because, you know, there are people who don't have the access, don't have the ability. So what we're trying to do is make sure that these hospitals have this information, they have the people to hand it out and the logistics behind it to communicate all of that. I talked to a patient care coordinator at UNC. They have somebody dedicated to people who have cancer who kind of sit with them and go through the notes and do all of that stuff. It's wonderful. Not all hospitals do that. So making sure that they have those resources, but word of mouth is really, really important. I wish that every organization knew that. And it's not just us. As I mentioned earlier, and as Julie mentioned, I've been a part of many wonderful organizations. And it's the same way across most of them. Some of these hospitals just don't know what they don't know. And then when you're getting this information as somebody who's in need, or you're nervous or you're scared, you're not taking in information in the same way. So as much as we can do to let people know about the services we have prior to a diagnosis is exactly what we want to do.
That's awesome. Thank you. And I think that is one of the things that as Rotarians we can help to do is spread the word so that our friends and family know that there are resources. So when you hear of someone in your community or your church or your neighborhood that is going through a hardship, that we know there's someplace they can reach out to and to advocate for that. So one of the questions is familial risk with, I know that there's a gene that you can have tested for if you're a carrier for maternal history, sibling, or both. Do you feel like that familial risk is higher genetically with African American and Hispanic versus white, or that the familial risk is not dependent on race?
I don't know necessarily that it's dependent on race. I think anecdotally, I've talked to several Black women who have extensive family history of breast cancer, I will say, like multiple siblings, a mother, but it's not one or the other. My grandmother was diagnosed with breast cancer at 74. So I wasn't really considered, that's not really considered more high risk for me. I have no breast cancer genes. And I was offered genetic testing after I had my diagnosis. So you can, I'm sure, get genetic testing if you can pay for it, or if you have really good insurance and it'll cover it. I was able to get it covered because of my diagnosis, but if you have a sibling or if you have a mother with breast cancer, you should be getting your mammograms earlier than 40. I had a coworker years ago whose mother had breast cancer at 40, and I think she got her first mammogram at 25. So you should be getting that earlier and advocating to get that earlier in case a doctor is being maybe slightly dismissive of that. But they're very busy, they can be. So it's important to be on it.
Right. Good. So Ken has a question about the number of cases, that is it true that the number of cases has increased, but deaths have decreased? Are we catching things sooner or more often, but we're doing a better job of preventing them from going so far?
Correct. In many instances, we are. Yes. But there is still a lot of work to be done. There are many different types of breast cancer. And then again, because life is so busy, if you're not prudent about getting that testing, going to get your mammogram, doing all of those things, and you let it kind of sit to the wayside, that's when things get diagnosed at a much higher rate. And then again, a mammogram is fantastic. It is, you know, the first thing that you should do, but you also need that supplemental imaging as well. So being really communicative with your doctor and saying, no, this isn't normal, or this doesn't look right. What do we think about this? What do we think about that? That is where, things can kind of go awry. But yes, I mean, we've come a tremendous way. We have many drugs out there for breast cancer. For, you know, stage 1, we have hormone drugs that people take. We have, I mean, when you go through chemotherapy, there's even ways for you not to lose your hair. So, I mean, we've come such an incredible way. But yes, Ken is right.
Can you talk a little bit about the newer findings with dense breast tissue for smaller breasted women, that the tissue is dense and that they're not reading things as easily, that in the standard mammogram, is there push to do alternate diagnostics more, and is insurance more commonly covering it now because of that finding?
I wish I could say yes, but no, not currently. And that's some of the advocacy work Komen is working on. So as of the end of September, you are expected to communicate your doctor, your radiologist, whomever. If you have dense breast tissue, you're supposed to get a letter in the mail telling you have dense breast tissue. And I don't know if I was living under a box, but I hadn't heard the term dense breast tissue until my doctor, my PCP, told me about it years ago before I got diagnosed. So to me, that wasn't a super common term. Again, I was, it was a couple of years ago. I was 33. I wasn't, thinking about breast cancer at that point. But yes, as of the end of September, every doctor is supposed to send a letter home, letting you know that you have dense breast tissue, and then extensive or more extensive testing might be required or might be recommended after you have your mammogram. That is often not covered. And it could be $1,000, it could be $2,000. So we actually had somebody on our team who has family history of breast cancer. She's getting her mammograms younger. She was told to get an ultrasound and she had to pay out of pocket for it. So we actually did a news story with, I believe it was QC News out of Charlotte, to illustrate why it is so important for insurance companies to cover that supplemental imaging. So when you get a mammogram, sometimes if there's a lot of calcifications, it just looks cloudy and they can't really tell. So you need that other imaging to do that really extensive work, especially that breast MRI. That gives you such a great picture.
And hopefully, as we learn a little more about the imaging of that, insurance will catch up with paying for some more of that. So
I hope so.
We have time for just a few more questions. Does anyone else have a question that they want to ask? Such great information. Ken, go ahead.
I don't know if everyone has heard of the BRCA gene. Our daughter had pancreatic cancer, and they told her that if they had identified the BRCA gene, which is a family trait, earlier, they would have given her different tests that might have prevented her pancreatic cancer from progressing. So does the BRCA gene have anything to do with breast cancer?
100% it does. Yes. So if you have a mother or a sister with the BRCA gene, it is recommended that you yourself get tested. If you do get tested and you are confirmed to have it, that can start a conversation about a mastectomy, a hysterectomy. It means you're at a much greater chance of getting most female women cancers. I think famously, Angelina Jolie, I don't know if it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I think she had a mastectomy, hysterectomy, all of it at once, because she was positive for the BRCA gene. I'm not sure of the BRCA gene and the connection to other types of cancer. Through your personal story, you're sharing the connection with pancreatic. I'm not too knowledgeable in that, but I do know that you have a much greater chance of getting breast cancer, of getting ovarian cancer, cervical cancer if you have the BRCA gene.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And again, thank you for joining us today, Jenny. That was a great program. And one of the things that we like to do here is we like to dedicate a book to our speaker, and we put it in a little free library. Literacy is one of Rotary's other areas that is very important to us. And so we thank you by sharing this book, Cancer Hates Kisses. And the author was diagnosed with breast cancer 4 months after giving birth to her daughter. She wrote this picture book to give other parents and their children an encouraging tool for having conversations, a lovingly upbeat book that is also refreshingly authentic and straightforward. And so this book will be dedicated in your name from our club, and it will go into a little free library. So thank you again, and we will definitely be sharing, especially this month with Breast Cancer Awareness Month, we'll definitely be sharing the information that you have provided with the links. And you know, there are so many activities to support breast cancer awareness, and Jeanette and I are actually playing in a pink ball tournament later this month, and we in our community purchase pink ribbons to put on mailboxes for the month or wherever on your door. And so we get together and play a golf tournament and raise some money that goes towards breast cancer awareness as well. So I think this month, I love the backgrounds that Carol and Ken and Shirley have put up as well. And thank you again for sharing this information.